Yo,
Yo,
what's up?
not a lot. Can you hear me all
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is this the
Your audio is good.
sweet?
How about mine?
Beautiful. Yeah, it's fine. It's all good.
So how's Melbourne?
Uh, it's good. It's starting to get a little bit cold now, so I'm just gonna sit down. Um, but yeah, no, it's we had like one random hot week last week because I was like ready for the jumper weather. But yeah, now I think it's cooling down, man. So yeah.
Close to mom and dad. So enjoying my time. Haven't started looking for jobs. Utilizing this free time to do things that I actually enjoy doing.
Yeah. So one of them, I like, obviously I'm on here because one of the things you're wanting to do is to build up like the powerlifting community, like in your local area. Is that sort of what the aim is?
Powerlifting community is amazing. A lot of powerlifting gyms now. I've visited two of those, Vintage Strength and Relentless Strength.
Mhm.
Really good facilities. And I actually see a lot of youngsters deadlifting 300 kilos and above. So there's no doubt that these guys are at elite level.
Yeah, yeah, wow,
But
yeah. The junior training out the other day looked awesome. Like I
yeah,
saw it. I mean, obviously I have no idea what to expect, but my first thought was that you were back in Melbourne. Um, Yeah, and then I was like, oh wait, no, he's not. Yeah, it must be over there. So yeah, it looks good.
so
Wow.
it's massive, and then it's warehouse style powerlifting gym, so you don't have to worry about dropping 300 kilo deadlift. I'll just give it another 2-3 minutes, and then I'll give a quick intro to people who actually don't know you. I mean, Australia, Melbourne, they know who you are, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many of these youngsters, upcoming powerlifters in Bangalore, have actually heard about you.
Awesome, man. Sounds good.
Uh,
Cool. Oh, that'll be good. Yeah, I'm tipping no one knows me. That's fine.
oh,
Yeah.
it would be nice to get that exposure. I mean, not a lot of these lifters get the opportunity to travel overseas. Like I've spent 10 years in Melbourne and
Mhm.
I've interacted with lifters, coaches like yourself and others. So that interaction means a lot to me. You'll get to learn a lot. And I
Mhm.
feel that's something that the young upcoming powerlifters are missing over here, that
Mhm.
exposure. I mean, they can look up stuff on YouTube, on Instagram posts, but this is something that gives them a personal touch, interacting
Yeah.
with us and then understanding our mindset, what happens. I mean, it's just not lifting heavy stuff and dropping it down.
Mhm.
There's your mental aspect, your diet aspect. There's so many other things that actually get involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel once they get exposed to others and see what's happening in the outside world, it gives them a different mindset on how to approach. And it also gives them that etiquette that they can carry forward. Like you always mention, it's just not about things that you can learn inside the gym. It's how you can translate that into other aspects of your life.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
I think we've got enough people. So for those that don't know Alex Deken, he's an accomplished Australian powerlifter, well-respected coach. You started competing in 2013 or way
20.
before that? 2013.
Yep.
And he's got multiple podium finishes at national level, state level, with GPC, Powerlifting Federation, and Pro Raw events. And your last comp is an highlight to me because you had zero prep. You walked in to PTC headquarters and then you just decided to compete and then you still had a podium finish. You placed third.
Yeah. 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 That one was, I mean, obviously, but I was coaching someone else, and this was like just after or around COVID times. And then she rocked up and she looked like death. And I was like, are you sick? And she's like, I think so. I was like, you should probably go home and get a COVID test. So she goes home, gets this COVID test, texts me. She's like, yeah, I've got COVID. I was like, cool. So I was like, I traveled like 45 minutes to get there, and I had all my stuff in the car, and I just asked the event organizer if I could like take her, not her place, but like her registration,
Mm,
um, and then competed. Yeah, what, I don't know, like an hour later or something. So yeah,
there you go. Not even a 24-hour weigh, and you just rocked up, weighed in. And then you ended up squatting 260 in sleeves
yeah.
and bench pressing 200 and deadlifting 265 or 275, that comp?
It was 265, and that was conventional. And so I usually pull
Sumo,
sumo,
yeah.
uh, but I had a hip injury at that time and hadn't
Mm,
deadlifted over like 180 for a while. So yeah, I just winged it and hoped that conventional would go well, and so it went pretty well. So yeah,
okay. And for those that don't know, your personal comp best, squat 335 kilos, if I'm right,
yeah,
and bench press 222.5
mm-hmm.
and deadlift 325.
325, yeah,
Yeah. And then your best total is 860. That was under 110 kilo weight class category.
yes, yeah, yeah, technically, because that was that one where I there was more competition in the 110, so I drank a liter of water to weigh. I think I weighed in at like 100.4 or something.
Okay.
Just yeah,
Just making it.
yeah. So I was a 100 kilo lifter, but like technically 110 because I was like purposely went up.
Mm.
So yeah,
So your records have always been under 90, if I'm right. So 2017, you total 845 kilos,
hmm
and then 2018, you pushed it to 857.5. But the catch is Patrick Morrison, weighing at 89.4, had done 870 in 2018 before that.
yeah,
So you almost held it for a year, he took it away.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
But technically, he did that in under 95, not under 90.
Oh, yeah, yeah, true. Because that was at Pro Raw, and the
Correct.
class is up to
Correct.
90. Right,
Correct.
right, yeah. So you know better than me.
So yeah, that's something because I remember that because Marcos had posted on his page on Facebook on you holding that under 90 all-time world record at that time. So and then I knew that Patrick did do 870. He weighed in at 89.4, but it was a 95 kilo weight category.
hmm Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I think he purposely weighed in that much so he could also break the record. So yeah,
So we've got one question. What are your thoughts on back down sets?
um, I I like them and use them. I think they're especially useful for I think especially for like more like intermediate or ad, advanced or like elite lifters. Often they might only really have the capacity to do like one like hard top set. When I say like a hard top set, like I'm talking like 8 RP above.
Hmm.
Um, and so to like maintain that for multiple sets, if you're going to do like 3 or 4 sets in total, um, a lot of people probably aren't going to be able to do that, or at least not be able to do that to like a very high standard. So I think back down sets in that case are useful for sure.
Thanks. So I'll just start. So we did collect some questions early on. So what's your general approach to programming for intermediate to advanced level lifters?
hmm do you just mean like my just general approach to programming,
Correct.
or
General
uh,
approach to programming. When someone reaches out to you and then says, I need a program, I've got a comp coming up.
yep.
So there's a difference between someone who's been training for 10 years, but someone who's like done a novice competition and then has reached out to you. There's that difference on how you would approach. Like in your example, people that you've trained with, I would say advanced level, Brendan, Strong
hmm
Geelong,
hmm
and then someone who's just recently joined. Deacon Strong team.
Yeah.
So you would have a
Um,
different approach.
yeah, I think the general like framework is the same. Like, because I'll use like phases of training where it's like, hypertrophy blocks, strength blocks, peaking blocks. I think where the differences would lie would be, especially if I, like in that example you're using, like when I took Brendan on, he was already strong and had been competing for a while. Like I didn't build him up to that.
Hmm.
So I'm definitely taking into account his training history and what's worked for him before, what he believes works as well, just because he's going to have more buy into that, and I try and fit that into my own like uh, style of programming. Whereas with like a novice lifter, I'm building them from scratch so I can do what I want. So, but yeah, my approach is like just to programming in general is those like phases of training. Um,
And that also gives you to closely work with those athletes and then see how they progress. And then that comes to my next question in terms of how would you balance specificity with variation in a training block? Like that's again going to change based on the athlete that you're working with.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think there's like with that question, there's more differences between like a novice lifter and an elite lifter there. Like I think a novice lifter throughout any block, whether it's hypertrophy block, where generally there's going to be more variation for most people because we're not training as specifically
Hmm.
compared to a peaking where we're going to be more specific. When I say specific, specific to the goal of squatting as much weight as possible in the squat, bench, and deadlift for one rep to
Mm.
a competition standard. I think for a novice lifter, they're just going to have more variation throughout all the blocks because they're not as strong. Or usually they're not as strong. Um, so they're not creating as much fatigue. So they can just handle more training. So we can do more of like more accessories even throughout like their peaking block. Whereas when you've got a elite level lifter or even like an intermediate, you're probably going to drop those accessories off because their weights are getting heavier. You have to like manage fatigue.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's where you see the difference between like that balance between like specificity and variation between like different levels of experience like lifters.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So next question that I had was, what are some red flags you watch for a lifter's training log or performance? Like
Um, you go.
for your team, like for me, we've got the app where we can upload the videos as we go through the sets, but where I would usually just WhatsApp it to you. So that
Hmm.
does not give you precise record on things that I'm actually doing at the gym. I could have
Yeah. Yep.
possibly done two sets instead of four and then done my back downs. So that's something that as a coach you would still want to question.
Yep. Yeah. Um, red flags. I think because so obviously you sent me some of these questions so I could be
Mm,
prepared. I interpreted that differently. So what I thought you meant was like when it comes to someone's performance or something, like if they drop off for 2 weeks, like as in sorry, if their performance drops 2 weeks in a row,
mm-hmm.
that to me would be a red flag, and that's where I'd want to change something because one
Right.
week sort of really enough. Um, and yeah, as you mentioned, we've got the app. We've got the weekly check-ins and everything, where I ask them to rate their fatigue, their general readiness for training, their um, positive affect towards training, like just how they're feeling about training. If they all just suddenly tank, then I'm like, okay, that's a red flag. That means I sort of need to do something about it. We need to have a conversation. But so you sort of mean like a red flag, as in like, um,
Do they stick to the volume that you prescribe?
right, right. Like as in something like what they're like hiding something from me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Uh I don't know. I think just when people don't fill out, like when they're not sending me videos,
Hmm.
um, and not filling things out. I don't know. I don't think that's a red flag for everyone because you get to know people, and some people just aren't gonna. Not everyone wants to sit there and fill out all the data of like while they're training or afterwards.
Hmm.
Um, like I know one of my lifters, Danny, who obviously you know, she doesn't fill out that much. Um, but I know she's doing it all. So it's not a red flag for everyone. But maybe for a new lifter, if I didn't know them, that'd be something I'd have to like have a conversation with them about that. Yeah.
Interesting. There's another question. Thoughts on magnesium supplement? And
Probably not my expertise. Like if it comes when it
Mhm.
comes to nutrition and stuff like that, I'm not. Uh, I'm more of a. I just sort of do what I'm told when it comes to nutrition. I have like a nutritionist who obviously prescribes stuff for me. So yeah,
That's a Tasha question then.
that's a Tasha question.
Another question, yeah, another question we've got. How do you guys quantify fatigue? I still am not able to figure out RPEs and fatigue. I just feel like training whenever I want to. Obviously, then comes the decrease and lifts.
Yeah. Um, how do I quantify fatigue? I feel like it's something that yeah, you almost have to like. That's a good
Understand,
question.
understand yourself first.
Yeah, because I think it's different because like some people can think like, oh, I'm feeling really tired, not even just from training, but just from life, and then they'll like skip a session or something like that. But you almost have to like push through and see where your limits are and maybe more so use your performance as an indicator rather than how you feel. Because I'm sure like you would have felt times
Mm,
where you go into training and you think, oh, I feel fucked, like I feel tired.
yeah,
Um, but then you perform really well. So um, yeah, I think performance for me would be the indicator of how fatigued I am rather than how fatigued I feel.
hmm,
Um, yeah, but you can only really get that through
correct.
experience, I'd say.
Uh,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure new lifters, they still struggle with rating their own RPEs. Like I've started using the metric VBT, which gives me a level of measurement on how fast those movements are. And then that way I can translate it back to saying that, okay, that's an 8 RPE or a 7 RPE.
Mm. Yeah,
So that's something that I personally use. So again, it's person to person. I think it differs, and the more you understand yourself and you understand the bar path or the velocity, it's much easier for to make an assessment on your fatigue and RP of a specific lift.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that can be the trouble with RPE as well, and can be the advantage of using like percentage based training or like
Mm,
prescription. Because if you just have to hit a weight no matter how you feel, um, that can encourage you to push through. Whereas like if someone is often just feeling tired, they may not be training hard enough if they're just using RPE. Um, so yeah, there's that part of it as well. So
And with you, what I've experienced is when it comes to peaking, you do switch around between the percentage prescription and RPE, which lets you give an assessment going into that comp of what your first attempt or even your last warm up is. And it's not
mhm.
always purely based on RPE or reps in reserve. So you usually switch it around, and I think again from lifter to a different approach.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it all just comes down to the self awareness of the lifter. I think.
Mm,
Um, Comes down to like the how mature the lifter is, I think. And when I say mature, I mean like maturity as a lifter. I think you know, with some people, I might not give them RPE, I might prescribe them numbers because I'm almost certain that they're going to overshoot, like
Mm-hmm.
in a pick or something like that. So yeah, it comes down to that as well, like whether I use um, RPE or prescribed weights. But I mean, to me, it's all the same. As in, like you're always, or I always encourage my lifters to auto regulate whether they have a prescribed weight or not as well. Like it's because usually if you're using RPE and you're used to it, you don't just go in there thinking like having no idea what number you're going to get. Like you
Mm-hmm.
probably got a number in, right? And then you might just change it slightly based on how you feel. And it's the exact same when you've got prescribed weights as well. Like as long as I'm there, encouraging them to auto regulate based on how they feel, they might increase it slightly, bring it down slightly. So I think it just matters. Like, sorry, I think whether I use RP or percentages will just depend on like what that person prefers. Some people really like just having that number and then tweaking it slightly, and that just works better for them. So yeah.
The follow-up question says, I mean, sometimes I feel tired. I can lift with best form and weights, and there are days I feel great but lifts up. This is something
Yeah.
that I can relate to, and every lifter can relate to. You walk in tired, but you start lifting, and then you realize, okay, you've actually got it in you. You've got enough gas to get through the entire session, and then you smash through it. And sometimes you even walk out with a volume PB or even one rep max. So that's happened. And there are days where you feel energetic, but at some level you're actually exhausted. Probably you didn't sleep well, probably you're not hydrated, your diet's not to the point, which do show up in the training session, which could possibly affect your lifts.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think yeah, everyone can definitely relate to that. I think if I think in those cases, like if it's just every now and then that's happening, that's pretty normal. Like I think you would just, I don't know if they would need to do anything different other than just be prepared to pivot and reduce the weights on the days that they came in feeling good and they weren't exactly, but found out that they weren't exactly where they weren't able to perform to the level they expected. Just being prepared to pivot and sort of move on with it. But I think if it was just a recurring thing, like every block, then you would take that information and then make some changes um, to try and manage that fatigue, whether it was focusing on things um, like your basics like sleep, hydration, food. It's probably where you'd start
Hmm.
because you want that stuff
Th-
is on point.
Things that
Um,
you can control.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then if you are truly nailing all those things, then that's when you probably make changes to the programming. But I'd be getting people to look at that first because it's probably, in my experience, most likely the reason.
Mhm.
Because yeah, like sleep, that sort of stuff, like that's that's the thing that affects a lot of people. And that, I mean, people are in control of it, but aren't great with it.
Can slip away. Just jump back to one of these questions that we received. How do you structure off-season training compared to meet prep?
Um, I don't really. I know what you mean. I'm just going to give an annoying answer though first. I don't look at it as like there's an off season and then suddenly we're prepping for a meet. Like, because you know how some people will be like, all right, 12 weeks out, now I'm in meet prep.
Hmm.
I look at it like, especially if you have a comp planned and it's like 40 weeks away. In my head, I'm like, well, this is comp prep. And so we can sort of make a plan to that. But I know what you mean. It's usually like comp prep, I'm sorry, off season is like after a
Hmm.
competition, maybe you don't have anything, and then that's like your chance to maybe do something different or train some other qualities. So
Yep.
then in that case, um, I would be I definitely take lifters' preferences into account. Like with you, like you're the best example. You love to experiment and do new things or just do like a wide variety of things.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be asking you, like, what do you need to do? What do you want to get out of your system? That sort of thing. Like, let's have some fun with it and get some enjoyment into
Yeah,
training. So I think off-season training for me is about, because powerlifting can be so monotonous and we're just training the same three lifts
correct.
all the time, all of the accessories are revolved around improving those three lifts. Off season for me is about refreshing things, like just mentally, and doing something different, so that you can sort of break that cycle of monotony before you get back into a comp prep. Yeah.
Understood. Should one experiment with sumo and conventional or stay put with whatever comes natural to them for powerlifting goals?
Um, yeah. I think that I think it's good to try. So this is where this can sort of like go back to the off season thing, because like, let's say if someone was pulling conventional and it was going well
Mm,
and there was no reason to make a switch, I probably wouldn't have them doing a sumo deadlift. Then when it gets to the off season and we're a little bit curious, as long as the lifter is curious as well, I'd probably put some sumo block pulls in there or something like that to see how do they feel, like what does their technique look like, are they enjoying them, and then sort of um, experiment that way. Then I think if you're, so I have a couple of lifters at the moment who have been pulling conventional for quite a while, and we are struggling to, with both of them, they struggle to get into a position from the floor where their back is straight enough, basically.
mhm,
So their upper back is quite rounded, which creates problems at the lockout of their conventional deadlift. They struggle to, they sort of fly off the floor and then get stuck at the lockout because they have to like straighten their spine at the top. So the advantage of sumo is that um, you can maintain more of an upright torso, so it's easier to keep your back straight. So when it got to their, post comp training or the off season or whatever you want to call it, we started to experiment with that, and now we're at the stage where we're in limbo. It's like the conventional deadlift's still going well. We don't really know if we're going to go sumo, but we're sort of training both at the same time. So that's in that case where you think one might be better than the other, that's where I'd be training them, like getting them to experiment
mhm,
with both at the same
mhm.
time. But yeah, so anyway, to answer this person's question, it depends. Yeah, it just depends. Yeah, I know it's such a cop out answer, but it really does just depend on the situation.
So next set of questions is more related to coaching and athlete development. What's the biggest difference between coaching an elite level lifter and a novice lifter?
Um, I think that in my experience, I think I mentioned this a little bit before. I think a novice lifter can handle more training. So when I mean more training, I sort of mean more of everything. Probably more exercises, more sets, more reps. They might even need more variation, especially if they're like really new to, because you've got novice powerlifters, but then a novice powerlifter still might have done like a bunch of weight training beforehand. But if you have someone that's just new to weight training, it's probably good for them to just do a lot of different stuff
Hmm.
to get like some overall development. Um, so you're just going to have more of that variation in there. And yeah, whereas with an elite lifter, because they're so much stronger, um, they just can't handle as much training. Like you might think that the more advanced they get, the more volume and everything they can handle, which is probably true. But then because you want to progressively overload and go heavier, they get stronger, and then the weights that they're using induce more fatigue, and they sort of get to a point where they're just not probably doing as many big top sets, maybe not like especially with the main lifts, they're just not doing as much work through the yeah, not doing as much work through there. Also because they're more skilled as well, they probably don't need to be doing as much squatting, benching, and deadlifting. as a novice would, because they also need to practice.
Yeah,
So,
I think personally I
yeah.
felt better deadlifting once in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And that's where my conventional had actually gotten the strongest. This was post COVID 2022 December, like post my pec tear. Probably another reason, like I haven't been benching and then haven't been squatting that much because of my pec tear. Deadlift got really strong, but I was deadlifting once every 2 weeks because I was here in Bangalore from October to November,
Mhm.
juggling other things. Do you think that's because as you advance, the amount of stress that your central nervous system actually goes through is different between a novice and an elite lifter, and that's the reason why at an advanced level, reducing volume sometimes helps because you give enough time for your nervous system to recover, not just your muscle tissues and your soft tissues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yep, yep. I just think just that extra weight and all the effort that goes into stabilizing everything that shouldn't be moving so that you can exert all that force into the bar, just takes a lot, like a longer time to recover from.
How
Yeah.
do you manage lifters with inconsistent recovery or external stress?
Um, so usually week by, it sort of depends on the situation, but like week by week, I'd be managing it like that. Um, I would be reducing their. So a good analogy would be, so when you're teaching someone to bench, let's say, and they're not strong enough to bench the barbell, you're not going to have them bench the barbell because they can't do it. So you would regress things to like a dumbbell
Hmm.
bench where you can manage the weight, you can bring the weight down a bit more. So when it comes to programming for someone who has like a high amount of like external stresses going on, we need to find that perfect starting point, that or not starting point, but just that the level of programming that where they can come in and they can complete it, whether it's like 2 exercises per session, 2 to 3 times per week, and start building those small wins from there. I think momentum is and consistency is the most important thing there. Um, so that's what I do from a programming perspective. Just try and
Hmm.
find some, like build those successes early on there, and then aside from that, just having a chat with them. And because a lot of people who are competing in powerlifting and then go through periods of high stress whether it comes to, I don't know, personal issues or work stress or whatever,
Hmm.
they want to still, train at the level that they're used to. And so you sort of have to have this conversation with them and be like, as much as it doesn't feel like it, powerlifting is a hobby to you. It is a hobby to
Yep.
everyone. So there's other things in your life that clearly matter. Otherwise, you wouldn't be making time to do them. Um, so you can't expect too much from yourself, like during this period. So um, yeah, programming changes and then just conversation on top of that is how I would be managing it.
I think having that open conversation with your coach and then letting them what's stressing you
Hmm.
and then coming to an understanding where you have to dial it back so that you're still progressing on a long-term basis and you're not hitting roadblocks or injuring yourself,
Hmm.
which is going to be an hindrance to your long-term progress.
Yeah.
So definitely having that conversation has helped me. So I'm guessing it's helped other athletes that you've worked with. So that's something that others can take away and then
Hmm.
think about it. Do not shy away, but have that conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And I think maybe that's something I take for granted as well. Like have like some people might not find it very easy to have those conversations
Mm.
with their coach, or they might feel like their coach, like there's no like really real specific channel in order to have that conversation. But that's something like in my check-in form now, I have a question in there where it says something along the lines of, "Are you experiencing any sort of significant external stresses that I might need to know about?"
Hmm.
And if so, please provide details or reach out. So just sort of providing that channel there.
So To follow that one up, have you had to pivot your coaching style for different personalities?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, definitely. I think like when it comes to like some people need more validation. Some people just want to be told what they don't want the validation. They don't care
Mm,
about the praise. They want, like, I've had some people who specifically ask me or say to me that the praise is a waste of time, and they just want to be told what can they do to improve. So people have their differences there. I think, and then on comp day as well, that's where you really see the differences between people and where I have to mold and change a little bit. Um, I think the only place I don't go, or so the only change I won't make, is if I have a lifter who really feels like they need to get G'd up, like they need someone yelling at them and slapping them and shoving, smelling salts in their face. That for me, I'm like a pretty calm person, I would say.
yep.
It feels very like it doesn't feel very authentic. So if I know I have someone like that, I will usually encourage them to bring someone along, whether it's someone from our team or a friend or something that can play that role for them.
Mm,
Because for me to get in someone's face and do all of that, like I don't even know what to say because I'm too busy focusing on the game plan.
yeah.
So that's probably the only time I wouldn't change my coaching style too much. Like, yeah, I feel like it gets too far away because I definitely have a bit of a trademark sort of like calm demeanor. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's something that I think we've spoken about it. Not a big fan of using smelling salt. I've never seen you use smelling salt. And I remember you telling me someone told you, if you're strong, you're strong. Smelling salt is not going to make any difference on the platform.
it was Ed Cohen personally told me that smelling salts is for a weak mind. And it's probably why I've never used it because Ed Cohen's like the goat. So, yeah, didn't want him to think I'm weak. By the way, I don't think if someone uses smelling salts, I definitely like. I've got heaps of clients that use it, and I get it. But yeah, I just thought it was a funny story.
Competition strategy. What goes into your decision making for attempt selection on meet day? And I'm pretty sure it differs from lifter to lifter, athlete to athlete that you work with.
Yep. Yes. I think so. In general, like when I'm working out attempts, I will usually have a pretty good idea of what I think they're capable of for third attempts. And then I sort of work back from there in terms of choosing openers. I think I worked it out one time, like if just to give like a percentage, not that I work it out this way, but the opener is roughly like usually 90% of what the projected third attempts will
Hmm.
be. So that's a general thing. Depending on the lifter, I will ask, like, so some lifters I'm just going to choose. I'm not even going to ask what their preference is because I just know that they're going to want me to choose and they have no idea.
Mm,
And that's probably where the novice lifters come into it. But when it's a more experienced lifter, it's sometimes the opposite. Like I know that they've worked with me long enough that they know, like I know, sorry, they know what I'm going to pick, and usually my attempt selection is probably rubbed off on them, and
mm,
so I'll be like, what are you thinking for openers and seconds and thirds? And it's exactly what I'm thinking, and we're like, yep, sweet, and we'll sort of go from there. So that's for the planning part of it.
hmm.
But then when it comes to actual like strategy on the day, for most people, I'm just going to try and stick to the plan. And I think I really try and prioritize, if we can, going 6 from 6, as in, so for the squat and the bench, just try and maybe be a slightly more conservative. And we're not going to send it early because we want to build that momentum throughout the day.
Hmm.
And so by the time we're at deadlifts, that's where we can send it. Because if you go for a big third on the deadlift, if you miss it, you don't really have to deal with any sort of emotional setback that will affect the rest of the day because the day is done.
Yep.
Whereas if you're just going like hard on every single lift, like if you go hard on a third attempt squat and then and you miss it, it can be hard to recover from mentally for the rest of the day. So yeah, I usually have a bit more of a conservative attempt selection approach for squats and bench, and then we sort of send it on the deadlifts.
On the deadlift.
And then aside from that, sometimes you're picking attempts based on records or placing, and so with the records you can sort of plan for that. With the placing, not really, sort of having to sort of work on the fly there. So yeah.
Next one. How do you help athletes deal with nerves or underperforming on a comp day?
So with underperforming, usually it sort of depends on the lifter, because some lifters, I mean, it's all mental. So I'm always trying to gauge like how are they responding to like this sort of setback. Like let's say they fail a lift that we thought that they should have gotten. So I'll usually sort of take them aside. Usually like at a comp, the warm up or the whole room is busy. I'll try and find a quiet place, have a conversation with them outside, maybe just sort of see where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
They're feeling, especially if they're feeling frustrated and angry. In my mind, we don't have time for that. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to go like crack the shits and feel sad and feel angry. But when you come back, you have to be ready to focus on the next lift, because that's where people, because you could, let's say you don't hit your third squat or
Mm.
whatever, that doesn't mean you're going to have a bad day. You could still go like 8 for 9, right? You could still like hit all your bench and hit all your deadlift. But if you let it get to you, that's where you can end up having a really terrible day.
True.
So it's about how well you respond to that. So I'm always trying to like help, or trying to gauge where they're at, help guide them in that way. But I mean, ultimately, it's not up to me; it's up to them. But that's what I'm doing from my end. So, and then when it comes to nerves, um, I would say usually, I think nerves are very common, like very common,
You get
and probably
nervous,
somewhat.
I get nervous. We've all been there.
I'd go as far as say is it's necessary. As long, but there's a point where the nerves can really get a hold of you. So there might be things that people need to do in order to manage those nerves, whether it's because especially if you've got a novice lifter that's nervous and they're in a novice competition, or they're just around other novice lifters, the worst thing is when they start talking to other novice lifters who are nervous, and then they're sort of feeding off each other. So that's when it's like, all right, put your noise cancelling headphones on, go find a quiet space, and focus on what you need to do next. Um, so yeah, helping them manage it that way. I will usually probably talk to my nervous lifters more, like through the warm ups, like even as they're lifting. Because I'm usually not the type of coach where as you're actually like lifting, like going through the motions, I'm probably not talking to you. I'm just letting you do it, and then I give you feedback like between sets or whatever. But if they're nervous, that's when usually I'm sort of talking them through each step. So just to make sure everything's set up right, maybe even on the platform as well. So that would be another strategy I would use for helping people manage their nerves. Yeah.
So that comes with experience. That comes with, knowing, working with someone in a similar situation where you've learned to do that and you practice it.
Yeah, 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 for sure. And knowing like different personality types as well, because if you have someone who maybe is already a quiet person and is nervous, um, I mean, it sort of depends, but I find largely leaving them alone, but talking to them more like through, like as I was saying before, like through their lifts and just making sure they're set up right there. Um, Whereas if someone is, the people who are like very extroverted, but who are nervous at the same time,
Hmm.
their instinct is just going to be to talk more. And then they sort of get themselves all like worked up. that's when I'm like, go get your headphones, go sit by yourself, because you need to calm down. So yeah,
So the next one, what's your take on water cuts or weight class manipulation?
yeah, yeah. So I think it's only worth doing when there are you're going for like a record or for like placing at a
Mm,
competition. Um, Otherwise, I generally don't encourage it. If someone, I did have a lifter, I can't remember who it was. It was, I think it was this year. They wanted to do a water cut just for the experience. Um, was it Emma? I think it might have been. Anyway, they wanted to do it for experience, not to try and be more competitive or anything like that. They
mm.
wanted just to do it just to see how it's done. So in that case, because the competition, it was just like a state level competition, I I said that that's fine. But yeah, generally, I'm not encouraging it. Yeah, I'd rather people focus on building themselves up, getting bigger, getting stronger. Yeah,
That's the PTC way of thinking.
yeah,
There's no weight
for
class in
sure.
the jungle.
No, no,
Get
exactly.
heavy,
Just go.
move heavy. All that matters is how much you've actually lifted and then dropped.
Yeah, go do your squats and then drink 2 liters of chocolate milk.
So, okay. Personal insights. Who influenced your coaching philosophy the most?
Um, so I've had three coaches that have influenced. I've had more than three coaches, but the three in particular that have influenced me the most. So I'd say Chad Wesley Smith influenced me the most with programming style.
Hmm.
Uh, Mike Teixeira from RTS Training Systems influenced me the most when it comes to like uh, interacting with clients. Like he was so it's not like he was so like he was right there when I needed him. Like often he wouldn't like respond for like 5 days or something, but when he did respond, it would be like through a video call, and he's got two small children in the back just playing, and he's got two newborn twins on his lap, and they're making all this noise, and he's looking straight at me, and just like I'm distracted by all the noise going on in the background, but he is like right there with me. And he was like very empathetic, and that he was like inspired me a lot, like when it came to, I don't know if this is philosophy, but just at least my style, um, and how I interact with clients.
Hmm.
Um, just trying to remember that, um, like how you make your clients feel matters. And then when it comes to technique, um, would be Thomas Lilly from Zero Weakness for sure. Yep.
Thanks. What are you working on in your own lifting or coaching right now? Because you haven't competed since 2022.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so have you heard of a sport called street lifting?
Nah.
I think powerlifting, like as in you're working out to a 1 rep max and you build everything up to a total, like to for a combined total. But
Hmm.
instead of squat, bench, deadlift, it's muscle up, pull up, dip, squat. So the reason that I think I want to have a go at this just for my own training is because I had really simplified my training lately, because I've been working on the business
Hmm.
and everything, and I just found that I just needed real like bang for your buck style exercises. Like I didn't want to do a bunch of training, but I just wanted to do like some heavy hitting exercises. So I was doing dips, pull ups, and squats. And then I found out about this sport. I can't do a muscle up, but I've got someone that's teaching me at the moment.
How to
So
do it.
yeah, I'm interested in doing that because I'm much lighter now as well. Like, yeah, I've competed up to, I think I've been as heavy as 109 or 108, and I'm 88 kilos now. So muscle up shouldn't be, out of reach. So, so for my own training, um, yeah, that's what I'm working towards now, just trying something different. I'm not too sure if I'm going to come back to powerlifting at some point. I think I would like to, um, but I'm not like a focus of mine at the moment. And um, and then in terms of like my business, I'm bringing on a new coach at the moment, Emma, for Deacon Strong. So that's taking up a lot of like my thought and attention because I'm having to define all my processes and the way that I do things, whether it comes to coaching and programming, all the back end stuff, so that Emma can, um, so that we can provide like the same level of service, but of course, so that she can also do it in her own way as well.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's what's going on with me.
Good. What's a coaching lesson that you learned the hard way?
Um, So I've only ever had one lifter bomb out of a competition. And I think I definitely learned a lesson the hard way through that. So the lesson was I'm always really big on listening to my gut, especially when it comes to um, um, attempt selection in competition. And that can always be an issue, like as a coach, because I have a good feeling, or sorry, I might have a feeling about what weight we should attempt, and I'm more removed, right? So I'm not making my decisions aren't as emotional as the lifters might be. So you naturally just get a bit of kickback from the lifters. Sometimes they want to go for a certain weight, you don't think it's a good idea, but then you also don't want to like make them feel like you don't believe in them, but then you also don't want them to fail as well. And so I think in this case, I was dealing with a lifter who was particularly challenging, I would say, um, in that aspect. Like, really, really was kicking up a fuss and wanted to go for a certain weight. I let them do it, and I didn't listen to my gut, and they failed all three benches because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Bombed out of competition. So I would say, so that was like pretty upsetting to me. I obviously didn't want them to experience that, and but yeah, that's a lesson I learned the hard way. So yeah.
That also goes to show, like I've seen you do it. When you step onto the platform, it's never me versus me. It's you versus everyone else who's competing in that weight class.
Hmm.
So you would have your strategy in place saying that I'm going to hold on to the position so that I finish the race, but I'm not going to bomb out of it,
Hmm. Yeah.
which I think is your personal experience and you also learned it from handling others as a coach.
Yeah. 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 For sure. Yeah. But see, even in saying that, like I like have experience handling people, or handling heaps of lifters. Um, but when I'm on the platform, I mean, I'm pretty sensible, but I still have those moments where emotion might take over, and I need to handle it myself
Mm.
to make some smarter decisions. So I get what it's like to be a lifter. So yeah.
How would you protect your shoulders when it comes to bench press? To me,
Hmm.
it was more specific to how do you strengthen your ligaments and tendons, your joints, because that's where your pain starts. That's where the recovery slows down because those soft tissues don't recover as fast as your muscle fibers.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So this person's probably had like anterior, like the shoulder, the
Yeah.
classic shoulder and all that sort of stuff. I feel like that stuff isn't necessarily because the tendons are not robust enough. It's more so, it's probably due to poor range of motion, range of motion or control, like technique. Like I feel like when people are able to work on good scapular control and are able to really pull, control and strength. So pulling their shoulder blades back and down and holding that position. they tend not to have as many issues. I'm not going to say none, because like when you're, especially when you're doing a low bar squat and then a
Mm,
bench press, and then you're, especially when people get quite strong, inevitably you're probably going to get some sort of pain and soreness. But I think that's how I'd be managing it in general. I'd be getting people to work on their focus on their scapular control rather than really focusing on like those overworked
mhm,
tendons,
mm.
like specifically, because I think they're being overworked because there's a deficit somewhere else. It's just where the problem is sort of what the symptoms are. Like this hurts, but it's probably something to do with what, a lack of control or strength. But there's something around the back. So
That's where people like you and Chan come into play
yeah.
to help lifters. Like for me, I've walked into Chan's session and then he fixed my grip wrist position on bench press and my shoulders, my elbows, everything started feeling better.
Mhm.
So that's another reason why you would need coach. You would need someone who is experienced enough to tell you what to do or what you're actually doing wrong.
Mhm.
Because just because you've been doing a specific exercise in one particular way for last 10 years doesn't mean that it's not hurting you. It's probably been doing the damages for last 5 years, but when it flares up, it really flares up, and then it's just a roadblock. You don't progress after.
Yeah. 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 For sure. Yeah. You should definitely get Shant on here. He'd be a good one.
I was
He'd be a good one.
thinking about it, but I think he's overseas, so I really didn't want to disturb him.
Mhm.
But probably yes, if time permitting, when he's free, I'll probably have him in one of the sessions and then go through things that people are interested.
Yeah. 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 No, he'd be excellent to have on. For yeah. Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, Shant was my. I would say actually he's influenced me a lot as well, because he was a coach of mine. It just wasn't for very long, and I wasn't powerlifting at the time. But yeah, he's yeah, extremely intelligent. So really interesting to listen to.
He's the smartest one that I've actually come across.
Yeah, and very sure of himself as well. Like very abrupt. I like it.
I mean, he knows his stuff.
Yeah, yeah. He's confident in himself.
Yeah.
So which is good. Yeah.
So that brings us to close. If people want to reach out to you for coaching and stuff, how do they contact you?
Uh, Through Instagram is probably the best place. So they
Mm-hmm.
can go to, the handle is Deken Strong, Deken, and there's an underscore at the end. Or you can just go to my Instagram here, and you can find it in my bio. Um, and then I've also just launched my website last week as well, which is deaconstrong.com. So yeah, Instagram or my website would be the best
Okay.
places.
And as a closing comment, do you have anything specific to say to a wider audience here in India?
Ooh, putting me on the spot. Um, I don't know if I have anything specific to say to the audience in India, because I don't really know uh, much about of like where the powerlifting community is currently at. Because you were saying that like the gyms are really starting to pop up, right?
Yep.
So I imagine what's the level of competition like?
In terms of lifters or in terms of coaching services?
In terms of like number of lifters.
Huge.
Huge.
You
Yeah,
lo-
yeah.
you lose you lose track. Like Power Beard, Mohammad Azmat, he's got a really good team, and then Bharat Patil, who runs Relentless Strength. Again, he's got a big team of strongman, powerlifters,
Okay.
bodybuilders. I mean, for them to put up a facility on a 20,000 square feet says something.
20 20,000 square feet is ridiculous.
So that actually says something. Like a big facility, they do stuff, and it's
Mhm.
really nice to, come back and then see how much everything is advanced in terms of the equipment, barbells. It's for me, walking into that gym felt like walking into ESP, like in terms of
Mhm.
the choices of barbells that I had.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, wow.
So,
Yeah, that's
you know, thanks, Alex, for joining. Really enjoyed this, and we'll stay in touch. Thanks,
awesome.
everyone who joined. Cheers,
Thanks for
dude.
having me on, man.
Bye.
Okay.